Today we are going to study Victorian fiction. Victorian fiction. The novel became the popular genre in the Victorian age. In fiction, the novel became the popular genre in the Victorian era. It became a vehicle of ideas and also a means of amusement. During the Victorian age, people looked upon novel as a means of ideas and also a medium of amusement. In other words, we can say novel became a vehicle, that means a medium, a means of ideas for expressing ideas or spreading ideas, and also a means of amusement. It also became a means, a vehicle of amusement. It gave amusement to the people. People began to read a novel just to kill time also, just to pass time. The medium that the people during the Victorian age found was the genre novel. So it has, they found two uses for the novel, the branch of fiction novel. It became a vehicle of ideas and also a means of amusement. The Victorian novel reflected all the complex forces which influenced the age. The speciality or the peculiarity of the Victorian novel was that it reflected all the complicated forces which influenced, which produced a great impact in the Victorian age. The Victorian novel reflected all the complex forces which influenced the age. The spread of science made novel realistic and analytical. It was a period of unusual spreading of science. Science was almost reached its apex point. Because of the scientific advancement, this very science made a novel realistic. The improvement in the field of science made the novel realistic, and analytical means it gave the scope of analysis. Spread of science made novel realistic and analytical. Then the spread of democracy. It was a period of democracy. Victorian age found the immense spread of, or unusual or extraordinary spread of democracy. The spread of democracy gave a social and humanitarian dimension to the novel. The spreading of democracy gave a social as well as humanitarian dimension to the novel. Several authors tried to give a comprehensive picture of the contemporary society. Several authors or novelists they attempted to give a comprehensive or detailed picture of the contemporary society, existing society. What did the authors do or novelists do? They tried to give a comprehensive picture of the contemporary society. But the general tendency was towards specialization. So when we examine the branch of fiction, genre, novel, we can see that the general tendency among the authors, among the novelists was towards specialization. The novelists specialized in their writing. That is leading the novelists to, there were during that time novels on the background of sea. Novels of the sea means novels with the backdrop of sea. Of military life, there were novels with the background of military life. Of high life. High life means novels with the plots and the theme about the upper class society or high life. Low life, novels about the lower middle class society. And industrial life. There are also a lot of novels on the backdrop of industrialization. There were many novels on the background of industrial development or industrialization. So what was the general tendency among the novelists? About this, they had a specialization, they had a tendency of specialization, leading the novelists to the sea and a military life, of high life, low life and industrial life, etc. Then who are the famous novelists, well-known novelists, most important novelists during the age? Number one, the most important and the most famous novelist, Charles Dickens, William Makepeace Thackeray, and George Eliot. Real name is Mary Ann Evans. George Eliot epitomize the fiction during the Victorian age. The epitomize means they are the best examples. Epitomize means prove the examples of. Epitomize, prove the examples of the fiction of the Victorian era. Charles Dickens, William Makepeace Thackeray, and George Eliot. Remember these names. Epitomize the fiction of the Victorian era. Dickens used the novel for social reform. Dickens found the novel as a great medium for social reform. He wanted to effect social reform through his novels. Whereas Thackeray, William Makepeace Thackeray, satirized the pretentious upper class. His novels were a satire about the pretentious upper class. Thackeray wrote about the snobbery and pretentious nature of the upper class people. And George Eliot, Mary Ann Evans, made a didactic use of the novel. Didactic means intended to teach, intent or aim at teaching. She wanted to educate the public. See, her aim was to educate the readers. That means George Eliot made a didactic use of the novel. So these were the novelists, the types of novels during the Victorian age. So first we are learning about Charles Dickens, the greatest of the novelists during the Victorian era. The greatest, the most famous novelist during the Victorian age, Charles Dickens. He was born in the year 1812 and died in the year 1870, 1812 and 1870. Charles Dickens is the greatest of Victorian novelists. Remember that? Charles Dickens is the greatest of Victorian novelists. He was born near Portsea, a place in England, Portsea, P-O-R-T, Portsea. Where was he born? He was born near Portsea, where her father, John Dickens, father's name was John Dickens, was a clerk in the Navy Pay Office. Navy Pay Office, a Navy office which audited the finance. Navy Pay Office. Where was he born? He was born near Portsea, where his father John Dickens was a clerk. He was working as a clerk in the Navy Pay Office. He spent much of his boyhood days at home. He had actually in his childhood there was no opportunity of learning. He spent much of his boyhood days at home, where he read at his home. He read the novels of Smollett, S-M-O-L-L-E-T, Smollett, Fielding, Henry Fielding, ancient earlier novel writers, Smollett, Henry Fielding and Lee Sage. So these were his favorite writers, and whose novels he read during his boyhood days at home. He spent much of his boyhood days at home, where he read the novels of Smollett, Fielding and Lee Sage. These writers influenced him very much, or we can say these writers influenced his own novels very deeply. Actually, these writers helped to pave or make the field of novel writing in his mind. These writers influenced Charles Dickens and his novels very deeply. In 1823, in the year 1823, Dickens' family moved to London. From Portsea, Dickens' family moved to London, where his father was involved in money difficulties. His father was actually an extravagant fellow. He would spend money lavishly and be immersed in debts. So they went to London, the city, and actually there was every source of spending money lavishly. And his father, John Dickens, was involved in money difficulties and was confined to Marshalsea prison for debt. He was arrested and he was imprisoned at Marshalsea on charge of debts. In those days, those who were unable to pay the debts would be imprisoned. Thus, John Dickens was also imprisoned at Marshalsea. Then Dickens started to suffer very much because of these childhood experiences. Dickens started from the humblest position in life. We can see that he had a very, very humble and steady growing in his life. Dickens started from very humble position in life. When he was 10 years of age, when he was just 10 years old, he went to work in a blacking warehouse. He started working in a blacking warehouse, a shoe polish making company. When he got his work at a shoe polishing company, he was just 10. He was a small child, only 10 years of age, when he went to work in a shoe polish making company. That was his difficulty, that were the troubles he suffered when he was a little child. His father's imprisonment and his miserable months at Warren's, this company, Warren's left a profound mark on him. Actually, we can see that the childhood experiences certainly have a deep impact in our making of the personality. It is true. His father's imprisonment and his miserable, unhappy months at the Warrens left a profound mark on him, deep mark on him. His family never knew about these traumatic experiences until his death. But he did not reveal his experiences, his sufferings and hardships to anybody. He kept all these things in his mind. His family or family members did not know about these traumatic, mental, traumatic, painful experiences till his death. And these were revealed, these experiences or traumatic, emotional experiences were revealed in the biography written by John Foster. J.O.H.N. Foster, F.O.R.S.T.R. Foster is the biographer of Charles Dickens. In the biography, he revealed all these experiences. Then when John Dickens, his father, was released from Marshalsea prison, Dickens was sent to Willington Academy. He was sent for another job in Willington Academy when his father was released from the Marshalsea prison. At Willington Academy, he remained there till 1827. He remained there until 1827. He then became an office boy, PU, office boy in a firm of attorneys, lawyers, a company of lawyers. Later he became a peon or office boy, attendant in a firm of attorneys, firm of lawyers. Soon he got appointment as a reporter on the True Sun and later on the Morning Chronicle. Soon his career changed, he got other jobs. Soon he got appointment as a reporter on the True Sun, a magazine, and later on the Morning Chronicle, a newspaper, the Morning Chronicle. Some of his articles known as Sketches by Boz, appeared in the monthly magazine in 1836. In the year 1836, some of his articles known as Sketches by Boz, B-O-Z, Sketches by Boz, appeared in which magazine? Monthly magazine. In which year? In 1836. By the way, years earlier in 1829, in the year 1829, he fell in love with, he had a love affair. He fell in love with Maria Beadnell. But her family disapproved. Family did not allow to continue this affair, continue this courtship. Family was against this affair. Her family disapproved, and the association ended there. The association ended without culminating in marriage. It was in Sketches of Boz that he for the first time adopted the pen name Boz. That is the pen name of Charles Dickens. In his earlier writing career, he chose or selected the pen name B-O-Z, Boz. B-O-Z, Boz. So it was in Sketches by Boz, the articles, he for the first time adopted this pseudonym Boz. Boz was the pen name of Charles Dickens. By this time, Dickens developed a wide knowledge of almost all places in England. Dickens was extremely fond of traveling, and he travelled in every nook and corner of England. He had a very wide knowledge of the places in England. That is, the highways, courts, C-O-U-R-T-S, courts. He knew about the court and the workings there, and markets. He also had a deep knowledge about the markets functioned in England and other areas, and gardens of London. He knew everything very deeply. He had developed a wide range of knowledge about the places in England, such as the highways, courts, markets, gardens of London. During this period, he was welcomed to George Hogarth's family. He became a friend of George Hogarth. He was welcomed to George Hogarth, Georgehogarth, George Hogarth's family. And he courted the eldest daughter of the household. He fell in love with the eldest daughter of George Hogarth, the pretty Catherine. The eldest daughter of George Hogarth, the pretty, beautiful Catherine. They got married in 1836. By the year Sketches by Boz appeared, in the same year he got married. With the pretty, beautiful Catherine. Thus Catherine Hogarth became Catherine Dickens. In which year he got married? In 1836. He got married. At the same time began the serial publication. It was a practice of serializing the novels in magazines and all during that period. Only later it came out in the form of print or novels, books. Before that, the novels were serialized in the magazines. So at that time, the serial publication of the posthumous papers of the Pickwick Club. Posthumous means after death. Publication, posthumous papers of the Pickwick Club, better known as Pickwick Papers. In short, it was known as Pickwick Papers. That is its long original name. Posthumous paper of the Pickwick Club, better known as Pickwick Papers, came out. This novel raised Dickens to a literary and financial position. The novel Pickwick Papers, it was a tremendous or instant success. It took Dickens to a literary and financial position from where he never descended. There was no return afterwards. He reached a safer financial position with the publication of Pickwick Papers or the posthumous papers of the Pickwick Club. So it elevated him to a level of literary and financial position from where he never descended, he never came down. So the book Pickwick Papers is subtitled as the posthumous papers of the Pickwick Club. It is written in an episodic and spirited style. What is style used by Charles Dickens? You know, it is written in an episodic and spirited style. It is in an episodic manner. You know, it was released in magazine. So it was written in an episodic and highly energetic style, spirited style. It deals with, that is the plot of the novel. It deals with the journeys and observations of the Pickwick Club. It deals with the journeys and observations of the Pickwick Club. There is a club, Pickwick Club. Then the chief characters of the novel are, number one, the Samuel Pickwick. Samuel Pickwick, he is the chairman of the club. Samuel Pickwick is the chairman of the club. He is a retired businessman and philosopher. He pretends to be a philosopher. He assumes the manner of a philosopher whose thoughts never rise above commonplace, but he only had common thoughts. He pretends to be a great philosopher, but he is never so, because his thoughts never rise from the ordinary level, common level, commonplace. And the next important character is Sam Weller. Sam Weller, the servant of Samuel Pickwick. Sam Weller is the servant of Samuel Pickwick. Then Tracy Tupman. Tracy Tupman. He is a bachelor. He is a bachelor with an eye for ladies. He is a flirting type. He wants to make love with the ladies, but who never makes a conquest. He is not able to. He never becomes able to flirt with the ladies. He is never able to make a conquest of ladies. He is never able to win over the hearts of ladies. He is such a failure in the case of romance. A bachelor with an eye for ladies, but he never makes a conquest of the heart of ladies. Then Augustus Snodgrass. Augustus Snodgrass, a poet who never writes a poem. He is a poet who has never written a poem in his life. He is such a poet. Then Nathaniel Wingle. Nathaniel Wingle, he is an unskilled sportsman. He pretends to be a sportsman, but he is an unskilled sportsman. He is not an athlete. He is never a sportsman. The novel ends with the marriage of Augustus Snodgrass and Emily Waddell. The novel has a good ending, smooth ending. In the novel ends with the marriage of Augustus Snodgrass and Emily Waddell. Augustus Snodgrass, you remember the poet who never writes a poem. And the retirement of Pickwick. Samuel Pickwick retires from the club. He avoids the chairmanship of the Pickwick Club. Thus the novel comes to an end. And now let us see his other novels. Oliver Twist, which came out 1837-39. He started on the novel Oliver Twist in the year 1837 and he finalized it in the year 1839. 37-39. Oliver Twist, which deals with the story of an orphan girl whose hardships in workhouses were very pathetically described. And actually this novel caused for the reformation of workhouses. And this novel became, we can say, an eye-opener of the government towards the atrocities and cruelties which were practiced in the workhouses of England then. And Nicholas Nickleby in 1838-39. 1838-39. It also came out in the year 1839. Old Curiosity Shop, 1840-41. 1840-41, Old Curiosity Shop. Barnaby Rudge, Barnaby, Barnaby Rudge, which came out in the year 1841. It is his first attempt at a historical novel. Later he wrote another historical novel, A Tale of Two Cities. Barnaby Rudge is his first attempt at a historical novel which came out in the year 1841. By this time, Dickens's business and personal life were equally busy. He was very busy in his personal life as well as in his business, and he was elected to the Athenaeum Club. Athenaeum Club. It was a club founded in the year 1824. It was primarily a club for men and women with intellectual interests. It was a club of men and women of intellectuals. It was a club for men and women with intellectual interests. Which club? Athenaeum Club. And also during this period he met his future biographer. Remember his name? John Foster. He also had an acquaintance. He met his future biographer, John Foster. And he rescued his parents many times from financial ruin. It was a practice of his father falling into financial ruins, and there is often Charles Dickens rescued his parents many times from the financial ruin they had come across. Then Dickens was very fond of traveling. As I told you earlier, he was a good traveler. He was very fond of traveling. He traveled to America in 1842. He traveled to America in 1842. In the same year, that is in 1842, he traveled to Italy also. He made a travel to Italy also in the same year. And he traveled to Switzerland in the year 1846. In the year 1846, he traveled to Switzerland. And again, he traveled to America. He went to America in 1867. He twice visited America, in 1842 and in 1867. His American experiences are described in American notes. His experiences in America are vividly described in American notes, which was published in 1842. And Martin Chuzzlewit, a novel, Martin Chuzzlewit, which was out in the year 1843. But these novels caused a lasting resentment among the American audience. The Americans could not digest these novels. Actually, these novels, which novels? The American notes and Martin Chuzzlewit caused a lasting hatred, lasting resentment among American audience. They could not digest these writings. They had a lasting hatred against Charles Dickens because of these novels. That was his bitter experiences with American visits and his writing of experiences. His experiences in Italy are described vividly in Pictures from Italy. In the book Pictures from Italy, he very vividly, very clearly describes his experiences in Italy. In 1843, he brought out his first Christmas story. In the year 1843, he brought out his first Christmas story. You might know its name, A Christmas Carol, in which a cruel harsh Scrooge is turned into a knave man. Scrooge is the most important character or protagonist of the novel A Christmas Carol. That is his first Christmas story. Then Dombey and Son, the novel Dombey and Son, came out in the year 1846. Dombey and Son. Dickens's famous autobiographical novel. Dickens's famous autobiographical novel is titled David Copperfield. Some critics call it a pseudo-autobiography. False autobiography. Anyhow, the novel contains a lot of autobiographical elements. His famous autobiographical novelist David Copperfield appeared in 1849. It came out in the year 1849. Then Hard Times. It came out in the year 1854. A Tale of Two Cities. A Tale of Two Cities. Two cities means London and Paris, which is worked out on the backdrop of French Revolution. The most important characters are Charles Darnay and Sidney Carton. And in this novel we can see the undying love of Sidney Carton. Sidney Carton for Lucy Manet. It is a novel based on a triangle love. Charles Darnay and Sidney Carton resemble, they look alike, and both of them fall in love with Lucy Manet. And finally, Lucy Manet marries Charles Darnay, and finally Sidney Carton sacrifices his life for saving Charles Darnay and thus perpetuating the happiness of Lucy Manet. Such a great sacrifice is made for love. He is, of course, Sidney Carton is, of course, a martyr of love, we can call. We can see that he has become a martyr of love. A Tale of Two Cities. Two cities are London and Paris, which came out in the year 1859. Then Great Expectations. Great Expectations came out in the year 1860. Great Expectations. And Our Mutual Friend, which he started writing in 1864 and came out in the year 1865, Our Mutual Friend. And also another thing, Dickens had also a love for theatre. He also loved plays. He had also a deep love for theatre. He assembled companies, dramatic companies, and organized the production of plays. He also conducted or organized the production of plays. He also acted in a play, The Frozen Deep. And interesting thing is that he also acted himself in a play, The Frozen Deep. It was a play he wrote in collaboration with his friend Wilkie Collins. Frozen Deep, The Frozen Deep was a play in which he acted. He wrote the play in collaboration with his friend Wilkie Collins. Then Dickens had a great interest in social problems. Almost all novels depict social problems. He had a great interest, deep interest in social problems of the age. He was against capital punishment, death punishment. Dickens was dead against death punishment or capital punishment. He wanted the reform and rehabilitation of prostitutes who are destined to be so, for eking out or making a living. He wanted the rehabilitation and reform of prostitutes. And also he wanted the replacement of slums with flats in cities. He also wanted the social reformation of the replacement of slums with flats. He moved to a house in Kent, Kent, a country southeastern England. It is a country in the southeastern England. And Kent is known as the Garden of England. Kent is a very beautiful place. It is a very picturesque place. It is known as the Garden of England. Which place is known as the Garden of England? Kent. He moved to a house there, and he gave the name for his house as Bleak House in order to immortalize the novel Bleak House. The house name was Bleak House. His house in Kent was named as Bleak House. Remember that. Remember this interesting thing. By the late 1850s, he was captivated by the young theatrical actress, Ellen Ternan. He was captivated or attracted deeply by a young theatrical actress named Ellen Ternan. Ellen Ternan was the name of the beautiful actress. And in the year 1858, what happened? His marriage with Catherine. Catherine, you remember George Hogarth's eldest daughter, Catherine. His marriage with Catherine came to an end with a permanent separation, with a divorce, with a permanent separation in 1858. His marriage with Catherine came to an end with a permanent separation in 1858. Then Dickens had readings from his books in England and the US. There was a practice of reading from novels and all by the same authors, and people would assemble in the hall by means of tickets. It was a lucrative business, we can call. Dickens made a lot of readings from his books. Dickens had readings from his books in England and the United States, America, United States. Soon, the strain of reading and traveling had grown too great. Very soon, the strain of reading and traveling became too great, and he suffered a stroke. He suffered from a stroke, and thus he was compelled or forced to stop his readings. And finally, Dickens was in the writing of a detective novel called Mystery of Edwin Drood. Mystery of Edwin Drood. But Dickens did not live to finish the Mystery of Edwin Drood as he died in the year 1870. He could not complete the novel before completing the detective novel. He passed away. He died in 1870. So this is about Dickens. Study all these things. There may be questions from Dickens. You may be asked to give an account of Charles Dickens and his works. Study very properly.